change his matchup and his playstyle to adapt accordingly.
Like we mentioned, Caleb Gedemer, a 3-time regional champion, also getting himself a special event victory down in Colombia. Michael Davidson, on the other side, has yet to find himself a victory in the Masters division. He was a senior division regional champion in Hartford back in 2023, but he is most recently coming off of a top 8 finish at the World Championships in Honolulu, Hawaii.
I talk about it so much, Chip, how in this era of Pokemon, all of these younger players have fantastic idols to look up to and learn from, so many resources to get a handle on the deck and the ebbs and flow of the metagame. Both of these players representing the same team, I believe, sitting across from one another. I'm getting the jerseys mixed up.
Similar colors, right?
Okay.
We really need to have these teams kind of hash it out and figure out who needs to be what color.
This is the showdown right here. Who gets this color palette for the jerseys? These are the real bragging rights.
We got Team DDG on the left. We got Team CGC Cards on the right. Which of these two players will be coming away with the victory? The Lost Zone Toolbox from Michael Davidson and the Raging Bolt from Caleb Gedemer.
There is always a chance with Lost Zone, since we haven't seen it so much, Chip, that it has from time to time a chance to get off to some pretty awkward starts. The prize cards don't look too detrimental for either side. Looks to be a good, clean game.
Yeah, both players prizing their one of boss's orders. I don't think it's too big of a deal for Caleb Gedemer, but it definitely could come up for Michael Davidson if he's trying to get past, a high HP Raging Bolt in the active, maybe go after something that's a little bit squishier on the bench, like a Teal Mask Ogre Pontiac or maybe a Pheasantipity.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit before we went live, Chip, that Blood Moon Ursaluna was so important for this matchup and being able to pick its target even more so.
But to kick things off, underway. Here we go. Let's hear it for our players, our TCG Masters Division Finals.
The Hisuian Heavy Ball is the opener for Michael Davidson. Going to take an immediate look at the prize cards. This is always so helpful, Chip, if you know what's already in the prizes before you go for your first flower selecting. That way you have maximum information before you need to make that difficult choice of adding one card from your deck to your hand and the other option going to the Lost Zone.
And it is so incredibly important for this Lost Box deck specifically to know exactly what the 6 prize cards are, because those cards that you use off of flower selecting, one of them you get to keep in your hand, and the other one disappears forever to the Lost Zone. So if you find yourself in a situation where you've got, a pair of basic energy cards, it's really important to know what energy types you have available in your deck, which ones you can afford to lose. And it also changes based on whatever matchup you are playing against. Lost Box is a grueling deck to play through any Pokemon TCG tournament, so massive props to Michael Davidson for taking it this far.
Yeah, getting all the way to the finals with a deck like this, he might be running on fumes, but still playing fast, still playing clean. Took notes of the prize cards, Pokestop being activated, finds a Buddy Poffin to continue looking through the deck, grabbing a couple more Comfeys to keep the flower selectings running.
And that's really what this deck is about in the early turns, using flower selecting as often as possible, trying to fuel that Lost Zone every single time Michael uses one of these Comfeys. He'll get to look at the top 2 cards, add a card to hand, send one to the Lost Zone, and this is looking to activate his more powerful cards in his deck later on in the game, namely Mirage Gate, a card that you can only use when you have 7 cards in your Lost Zone, but its effect is extremely powerful, allowing you to pull 2 different types of basic energy out of your deck and attach them to your Pokemon however you would like.
Yeah, in the modern era, we've got Professor Sada's Vitality, Teal Dance, even Charizard EX's Infernal Rain to accelerate tons of energy, but this was kind of the first deck to really do it. The Mirage Gate, getting attackers set up out of the blue, being able to swing with whatever was best in that moment, but the first flower selecting finally comes through. A Water Energy and a Nest Ball. This is a sort of tough choice where you're saying, oh, do I want this Nest Ball for Cramorant, or do I need this Water Energy for a play down the road? Gets rid of the Nest Ball and keeps the water.
I think those are 2 cards that Michael would have liked to have had both of them, right? Use the Nest Ball, get your Radiant Greninja, use concealed cards, draw through the deck a little bit more.
And with a switch card to bring up the next Comfey, flower selecting gets rid of Roxanne to keep a rescue board to attach to the active Comfey and retreat for a 3rd flower selecting. Palpad goes to the Lost Zone to keep that powerful Mirage Gate.
A couple of tough choices for Michael Davidson right off the bat. Losing the Roxanne, losing the Palpad. Neither of those are cards I think he's super pumped to see hit the Lost Zone super early.
4th flower selecting now.
And he's going to choose to keep the Lost Vacuum. We saw from Hunter Butler yesterday some really cool plays with his Lost Zone deck, using the Lost Vacuum to fuel the Lost Zone and make it easier to get to 7 cards in the Lost Zone.
And by keeping that Lost Vacuum, you want to get around those Bravery Charms or just get to 7 a little faster. Pheasantipity is in the active spot for Caleb Gedemer, just deciding what his first play is going to be. Do I use this Pokestop first, or do I Nest Ball, grab the Raging Bolt or an Ogerpon? Decides to go for Nest Ball first of all.
And this may even have to just grab the Squawkabilly EX. I didn't get a
very
great
true.
look at Caleb's hand, but it didn't look incredibly strong. I didn't see any basic energy cards, so something like Radiant Greninja is not going to be helpful. It may have to be the Squawkabilly, which could be tough. That's a low HP, 2-prize Pokemon that I don't think Caleb really wants to put into play in this matchup. But that's the nature of this Raging Bolt deck. It is such a powerful card. It lets you dig through the deck super aggressively in the early turns. I mean, really the important thing here for Caleb is he wants to set the pace. He wants to put on the pressure. He wants to do whatever he can this turn to find himself a KO.
And typically, Lost Zone is the one that's tracking energy so specifically. But in this matchup, Raging Bolt needs to be very specific with its energy its energy usage, because you are having to discard energy with Bellowing Thunder just to take single prize knockouts. And if you're throwing away so much energy turn after turn after turn, you might run out. So the Ogerpons are super important so that grass energy is fueling these attacks and not the fighting and the lightning.
Yeah, the nice thing about it, though, is that the 1-prize Pokemon you're KOing have less HP, so you have to discard less energy in order to get knockouts. Like to KO a Comfey, you only have to discard 1 energy card from somewhere on your board.
And hopefully Michael will try to weave in some Cramorants, tax a little bit in that regard. Didn't have the Spiritomb in play as well, so there's no shenanigans there. Squawkabilly's going to come down, and Caleb will retain access to Lumineon V for down the road, hopefully when this boss's orders is required, or Professor Sada's.
Yeah, Michael probably is not expecting Caleb to have a Lumineon V in his deck, to be honest. It's not a commonly used card in the Raging Bolt deck. In fact, in Caleb's top 8 match, I was watching him play against Yerko Valencia, and Yerko reacted kind of interestingly whenever he saw the Lumineon. He was like, oh, interesting, like not something he would have expected to notice.
But the Squawk and Seize comes through after attaching the Bravery Charm, couple Pokestops going down, a Switch Cart going down.
Oh my,
Professor Sada's found 3 into the hand, and a Raging Bolt with an Ogerpon. Fantastic draws here, Chip.
Yeah, that, I don't know about fantastic. You want a Sada. 3, though, might be just a little bit too much. I guess it does make your Pokestop usage a little bit safer.
Draw 3. Beautifully done.
I think he does want to find a little bit more. Ideally for Caleb, he'd get maximum value from a Professor Sada. You know, he'd be able to have 2 energy in the discard pile. He'd be able to have 2 ancient Pokemon in play to accelerate 2. And very interestingly enough, we're going to actually see an Earthen Vessel discarding a Professor Sada. That should definitely key Michael Davidson into how interesting Caleb Gedemer's hand is.
I like this play too. Get the Earthen Vessel, discard a Sada, grab the Grass and the Lightning. This is going to give you one more draw from Ogerpon. You get to attach to your Raging Bolt, and now hopefully find a way to get the second Raging Bolt, get that double attach from Sada that you were talking about, Chip, so then the Pal Pad can put both of those Sadas back into the deck before the turn is over.
And one thing Caleb can do here is he can play pretty loosely with, you know, how many resources he keeps hanging around in his hand. Sometimes you'd want to be careful about how many things you discard in case, you know, like discarding a Sada could be bad if you get Iono'd. But he should probably know that Michael Davidson most likely does not have Iono in the deck. He sees the Roxanne has already hit the Lost Zone, so he should know that he's going to get to keep his hand for the entirety of this game.
And with Professor Sada's being played, just to attach to one Raging Bolt, draws, finds another.
I think he's missing a switch card here. I don't think he has a way to move the Pheasantipity out of the active spot in order to get a knockout.
Unfortunate. Yes, Caleb Gedemer replaced 3 switch cart in this deck, had lost 1 from the Squawk and Seize.
Yeah, also has the Prime Catcher. That could have been another way to move this Pheasantipity from the active spot. I don't think Caleb is going to have much here. He may just have to pass with the Pheasantipity active.
Very interesting. I like the attach here to Ogerpon, but decides against it. There's always the chance of a second Teal Dance plus the attach for turn for Myriad Leaf Shower to work in an attack that's not going to force you to discard energy. It's a pretty respectable number for this matchup.
Yeah, the Myriad Leaf Shower is pretty nice if you play Briar in your deck as a Raging Bolt player, but it's actually something Caleb's chosen not to go with this weekend.
So back over to Michael Davidson, immediately goes for Pokestop.
It does have Colress's Experiment in hand, so with the Lost Vacuum as well that he found last turn, we should definitely see the ability to use Mirage Gate. Now the question is just going to be which attackers is he able to find?
and looks at the top 5 cards of the deck. With Chorus's Experiment, you pick 3 cards to add to the hand, and the other 2 go to the Lost Zone. Gets rid of Spirit Tomb and a Psychic Energy to keep the rest.
Yeah, Michael Davidson's really valuing the Lost Vacuums here. He's got both copies of the card that he plays in his hand currently. He recognizes that getting rid of these Bravery Charms on Caleb's end of the field is going to be pretty important.
Night Stretcher to bring back Radiant Greninja, so this is going to get even more card draw for the deck. What I like about this matchup, Chip, is that both players are running very low amounts of disruption, if any at all, so that means that players should be more confident to draw cards and utilize their entire strategy at any given time to strike at the opponent. So after the concealed cards is used, discarding a Water Energy to draw 2, Flower Selecting is now employed, Buddy Buddy Poffin goes to the Lost Zone, and Iron Hands EX is added to the hand.
Yeah, I think the big question here for Michael is just going to be which attacker does he want to utilize early on? He's going to try to get a little poke in with the Cramorant, soften up something like the Pheasantipede to try to clean it up later. You really don't want to commit a bunch of energy cards to something like an Iron Hands or a Raging Bolt, but it actually seems like Michael is going to have to go for the Iron Hands here. Does he have a play to amp you very much to KO the Squawkabilly here?
Squawkabilly is weak to lightning, and Prime Catcher is in the hand. Is there a second Mirage Gate? I think that's the final piece I didn't see in the hand yet, Chip.
He would need 2 Mirage Gates, and it looks like he does indeed have it. This is a really strong play, but it is really, really heavy on your resources to do this. 2 Mirage Gate down and your Prime Catcher, but it's going to get Michael Davidson 50% of the way towards winning the game. 3 prize cards from an amp you very much.
A tale as old as time. Do you overextend for a big play in the early game? Are you confident you'll have enough resources remaining to close out from that point, especially versus Raging Bolt, drawing so many cards, having access to Pheasantipede to strike back? Prime Catcher brings up Squawkabilly. Michael Davidson sneaking in an extra Flower Selecting because the rescue board.
Tough choice there. Does choose to get rid of the Chorus's Experiment, wants to value hanging on to the Mirage Gate. Mirage Gate really is, at this point in the game, the most important card for Michael Davidson. And there it is. Amp you very much. 3 prize cards. Down goes Squawkabilly EX.
3 prize cards taken halfway to victory in Game 1. Caleb Gedemer has a fully charged up Raging Bolt EX and promotes it to the active to strike back against Iron Hands. Can draw 3 from Pheasantipede. I believe that there is still plenty of energy for Teal Dance. Hopefully a second Raging Bolt can enter the fray here.
I would love to get another one down. I actually don't think he has any energy cards in the discard pile at the moment, so that does shut off the use of the Professor Sada. He's already got everything he needs to attack. He's got everything he needs to take a KO. But getting another Earthen Vessel here is pretty solid, along with a Nest Ball will open up some options. He, of course, will have access to flip the script as well. We haven't seen something like the Greninja come into play just yet.
Just immediately goes for Professor Sada's Vitality. Doesn't want to fish for the next Raging Bolt. It's just going to over-attach to this one in the active. 5 energies in play now. And flip the script to draw 3 cards thanks to Pheasantipede EX. If your Pokemon was knocked out last turn, you can just draw 3.
Something kind of interesting Caleb could do is he could lock all these energy cards up on this Iron Hands EX. He has the Iron Bundle in his hand. He could use that Hyper Blower ability, force Michael Davidson to send up one of these 1 prize Pokemon. Caleb could take a pretty easy KO for just 1 energy discard, and Michael's got 4 energy cards on the Iron Hands EX. He could promote it and then retreat it into something else and then Super Odd. But then that Iron Hands is just stuck in play doing nothing.
An attach for turn to Raging Bolt. It's been a long time since I've seen this many energy attached to just a single one. Caleb Gedemer kind of recognizes that Lost Zone struggles to hit some higher HP numbers. Is going to discard 4 to knock out the Iron Hands and just take 2. After that big extension to line up that attack, Caleb doesn't think that Michael will be able to keep up the pressure.
The real problem here for Caleb Gedemer is going to be the fact that he does not play any disruption in his deck. We don't see any copies of Iono, something you see every once in a while from a Raging Bolt player. So Michael Davidson is just going to have the ability to increase his hand size turn after turn after turn. He'll have access to basically his entire deck probably after this turn. So he doesn't really need too much to close this game out, and Blood Moon Ursaluna is going to be one of the main attackers for him to do it.
Yeah, this is important to note, Chip, that with Blood Moon Ursaluna, even though its attack cost is reduced by that seasoned skill ability as your opponent takes prize cards, Mirage Gate lets you make up that gap and swing for 240, knocking out Raging Bolt EX.
And it's
Mirage
perfect
Gate
math.
with Super Rod.
And this is the perfect combo of cards. It's going to be perfect math. 240 damage exactly will be enough to take the knockout. Michael will go down to just one prize card remaining. And really all Caleb Gedemer can do is attack through the active and just say, I hope you don't have it.
Yeah, this deck runs 3 Bravery Charm over on Caleb Gedemer's side, but it was only able to find 1 for the Pheasantipity. But Raging Bolt is a sitting duck in the active. Flower selecting. Nest Ball and Chorus's Experiment are the options.
Kind of a tough call. You really want Nest Ball to be able to get back Blood Moon Ursaluna off of a Super Rod in the future. But Chorus's Experiment is how you see a bunch of cards. Makes sense to hang on to it. And there it is.
Boom. Blood Moon for 2 more prizes. Michael Davidson with 1 prize card remaining. And the ball is back over to Caleb Gedemer's court and promotes Teal Mask Ogre Pawn.
The easiest thing for him to retreat here, he can Teal Dance to it and then retreat it into a Raging Bolt EX. Caleb's got a lot of cards in hand, but Michael has a ton of cards in hand as well, and I believe we know Lost Vacuum is still waiting for Michael Davidson. As long as he has a Super Rod, as long as he has an energy card, as long as he has a way to get back the Blood Moon Ursaluna, the writing is really on the wall for this game.
Yeah, all of the Professor Sada's Vitality coming to Caleb's hand in the early game meant that he didn't need to have so many Raging Bolts in play ahead of time to get them all set up. But with just benching 2, Professor Sada's Vitality is played, and now we can finally get the double attach chip. And I believe there was an energy retrieval in the hand to get the other part of the attachment to fuel Bellowing Thunder and swing back into Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. You need to discard 4 energies to hit 280 damage and get the knockout.
Caleb should have the pieces to be able to make that happen. The question is just really going to be back over to Michael Davidson. What pieces does he have to respond to this knockout? The nice thing for Michael Davidson as well with his current board state, Caleb will take the knockout on this Blood Moon Ursaluna. He'll go down to 2 prize cards. Michael Davidson only has other 1 prize Pokemon in play, so if he doesn't have it this turn, he's not in a rush. He can wait. He can pass. He can just chill out. He would maybe be a little worried about an Iono, but this is one of those situations, these players are both very well networked. They have a lot of friends competing in all of these tournaments, and so they probably have a good idea of what the other player has in their deck list heading into this finals match. I have to imagine at some point one of Michael's teammates told him, hey, I don't think Caleb has Disruption in his deck.
And with no disruption, you're confident. Look at this huge hand. I think Michael Davidson's hand is almost or bigger than the remaining deck. Just going to be an Earthen Vessel now from Caleb Gedemer. Discard a card from hand, draw 2 energies from the deck, and then a Pokestop to draw 3.
Yep, does really just draw 3. 3 item cards were milled off there and all added to the hand.
So for Teal Mask, Teal Dance is used. You attach a grass energy from your hand to this Pokemon, and then you draw 1 more card. So many cards, so many resources for both of these players. And I wonder at some point, there's just going to be too many options, Chip.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of options. The players are going to have access to basically their entire decks at this point. I mean, Caleb, it looks like has
flip the
2
script.
cards left in the deck now. Does find the Bravery Charm.
Okay, that's looking pretty good.
Michael Davidson did already expend the Prime Catcher earlier on in the game, so Caleb is saying, hey, I'm going to put this high HP Raging Bolt in my active spot. I'm going to take 2 prizes. I'll take the knockout. What are you going to do about it? Michael Davidson's just going to have to find a Lost Vacuum, which we believe he has in hand.
There's another Ogre Pawn as well if Caleb wants to try to extend and draw 1 more. The switch card is great because you can retreat this Teal Mask Ogre Pawn in the active and retain that grass energy for your final attack of the game, but decides against it. Keeps the switch card, just manually retreats the Ogre Pawn. There's still 4 energies in play. The knockout on the Blood Moon Ursaluna is guaranteed, and 2 Nest Balls being expended. Just going to whiff those, get rid of them. Even if you have a bench space, you can play them out.
Yep, no basic Pokemon
1 card left in the deck.
Yeah, Caleb just wants to burn those cards out, just in case maybe there's a second Roxanne or something like that on Michael Davidson's side. And this will be the KO. Caleb Gedemer going down to just 2 prizes left. Does Michael Davidson have the combo to win the game right here? Super Rod can definitely help, and the Nest Ball.
Yeah,
that can get back the Ursaluna.
And with Caleb Gedemer on 2 prize cards remaining, Ursaluna needs 1 attachment, has lost Vacuum to get rid of the Bravery Charm. That means that Raging Bolt EX is set back down to 240 HP, so the math lines up perfectly for Ursaluna. Another lost Vacuum to get rid of the Pokestop and play a second one. This has a fresh effect. You can use that one as well to get even deeper into the deck.
I think maybe the one thing Michael needs is this Mirage Gate, which he is able to find. Super Rod now can put back the Blood Moon, put back a couple of energy cards, and we will see the Nest Ball grabbing out the Blood Moon, Mirage Gate being played, or Colress to just draw the 3 cards as well. That also will work. And Michael Davidson takes a convincing win in game number 1.
Both players went through their entire decks with no disruption, all cards on the table, everything down in game 1, and our Lost Box player comes out victorious.
Yeah, I have to say, it really does feel like this is a pretty good matchup for Michael Davidson. The fact that Caleb Gedemer doesn't really have any tricks to mess with what Michael is trying to do. There's no Iono, there's no Briar. He just doesn't have that much to try to offset things and give himself an advantage here. I think it's going to be a pretty uphill battle for Caleb Gedemer in this one.
It's going to come down to prize cards, probably Chip, or maybe some very difficult flower selectings where Michael needs to get rid of key resources. But to revisit this first game, a ton of resources expended to get the early knockout with Iron Hands EXs. Amp you very much to take a bonus prize on Squawkabilly, return KO from Caleb to get rid of that threat with the Raging Bolt in the active, and immediately Blood Moon Ursaluna comes out to play. With the help of Mirage Gate, it can attack much earlier in the game than any other decks normally would be able to use it.
I think a big deal in that first game was definitely the fact that Caleb had to use Squawkabilly on turn 1. Really tough to have to put that Pokemon in play because otherwise Michael, early game, doesn't have great attacking options. It's pretty much he has to poke with his Cramorant as really his only choice in order to try to set up knockouts later on in the game. So it was on Caleb's side. If he can avoid putting Squawkabilly in play this game, I think that could really be one of the difference makers for him.
I was also a little worried because Michael Davidson had 4 Comfeys in play, and so there was less bench slots to have multiple attacking threats in play. He had to consistently have the Pokemon he was going to attack with and then immediately power it up and send it into the active spot. And it seemed to go pretty smoothly in that first game, but I could imagine a couple scenarios where one missing piece could cause that attack to fail.
Yeah, it's definitely something that could come up. You know, the nice thing about this as well, I mean, Michael, if he didn't know for sure if Caleb doesn't have Disruption, I think he should know it definitely now because Caleb went through his entire deck, was down to just 1 card remaining, and no Iono was played.
And
there's
Caleb,
a chance it was prized, I guess, but yeah, I don't think so.
And Caleb did see that Roxanne that being sent to the Lost Zone much earlier. And you know how it is with Raging Bolt. There's some players that try to Iono them to 1, knock out the Vezendipity at the same time, but if they have Night Stretcher to get it back, they're just drawing out of that. But to kick things off, Michael Davidson starting with Blood Moon Ursaluna in the active spot, and goes for Pokestop.
I think that might be all he has. This is the type of opening Caleb Gedemer needs. If he can pop off this turn and get a 1-hit KO, win the game right now, we're going to go to a game 3. Michael Davidson's hand was terrible. He was living off of that Pokestop, and it yielded nothing for him. Caleb is going to have to be very careful about how he approaches this turn and be very mindful about what he chooses to do. He has some options here already with Greninja and Nest Ball.
Greninja using concealed cards to discard a fighting energy and draw 2 cards from the top of the deck. I talked about this, Chip, that Lost Zone can have these awkward starts despite everything. Nest Ball in the hand for Raging Bolt. Teal Mask Ogerpon is there. Energy Retrieval. Hopefully we can get some grass energy here soon, but it's going to be a Nest Ball first. Is this just going to be Squawkabilly then?
It's probably
an ugly
going
hand
to be,
discard.
It is an ugly hand to discard, and I think it may just be Raging Bolt. Caleb is going to take a moment to check the prize cards here. You know, he doesn't have to get full value from Asada. He can attach just the 1 energy if he can make up for that energy with another Teal Dance later on. So as long as he's got the ability to put 2 Ogerpon in play, he should feel A-okay.
And we have to account as well for the Slitherwing being able to just punch back
Another
against
option.
the Blood Moon Ursaluna EX.
The Slitherwing does 1-hit KO. The Blood Moon Ursaluna, and that, I guess, is technically an easier thing to get a knockout with. You don't have to get the second Teal Mask into play, but I feel like Ogerpon is, or not Ogerpon, the Raging Bolt is a little bit better because I think worst case scenario, you have the backup plan of just going for the Burst Roar, discard your hand, draw 6 if you're not quite able to get there.
And what I'd like to point out as well here, Chip, is Caleb is still approaching this match as though it's going to extend. There is the chance of tunnel visioning too hard on getting this early win, taking it to a game 3 with plenty of time on the clock, but Caleb is going to sequence out everything perfectly, still keep track of the prize cards, what resources he has access to, just in case he has to draw into an out to get the attack and then somehow misses one piece.
I do want to point out just real quick, Skarzig, like this is exactly why Caleb chose to go second in this matchup. Because, you know, if you don't give access to a supporter to a Lost Zone deck, they may have a harder time setting up in the early game, and it provided Caleb this opening window.
Yeah, there's plenty of Mirage Gates there. This is a late game hand, certainly, Chip. So after the Pokestop, Professor Sadas goes to the discard pile, finds a Pokemon catcher.
And that Nest Ball could be huge. That can get the Squawkabilly in order to help Caleb dig through the deck a little bit more. With Asada being milled here, I think you do have to just commit to using Sada right now. You'd hate to Squawkabilly away 2 more, and then you have a hard time finding your last one. See the 3 cards drawn. There's really not much help here. I think he's got to use this Nest Ball to find Squawkabilly.
And this is important. If I'm recalling correctly, you can't just Prime Catcher if Michael doesn't have any bench Pokemon to just get the switch for a Raging Bolt EX. Switch card does still need to be found in this scenario.
Yeah, Caleb can win, but this turn is far from over. He needs quite a bit of help, and it could come down to a Squawk in season. Honestly, with the way Caleb's hand is, I think he just has to go for it, to be honest. I mean, there could be an argument.
Lightning Energy.
He has so many valuable cards in his hand that I think he hates to have to discard this.
Yeah.
Because it is pretty unlikely I think he gets there. Like, he needs a pretty specific combination of like 4 cards off of 6 from a Squawkabilly Squawk and Seize in order to get this KO.
And with the Pal Pad and the prizes to throw away all these Sadas,
Yeah.
you can really paint yourself into a corner if this attack is not successful. Benches Teal Mask Ogerpon EX has a Bravery Charm. Where are you going to attach this onto Raging Bolt EX?
He needs to find Ogerpon, 2 Grass Energy, a Lightning Energy, and a Switch card. Yeah, that's a lot, Scars.
All right, 6 cards, throws it down, Squawk and Seize for a potential game 3. Show it to us, Caleb.
Yeah, he can draw more cards as well if he finds Grass
Ogerpon?
Energy, but I don't see any energy cards at all in this hand.
No, it's not there, Chip.
Doesn't have too much. I think we may just see a Burst Roar here. He can bench the other Raging Bolt EX in his hand. He also could just Nest Ball 1 out of the deck to thin a little bit more. That could be a little bit better, but then he is down so many resources.
Yeah, switch cards to put that Raging Bolt into the active spot, benches another one, and Burst Roar.
And Michael Davidson will breathe a sigh of relief here. He's been given another chance. What can he do with it?
Poke Gears found. Maybe find a Colress. Hisuian Heavy Ball can be used. There's a Comfey in the prize cards.
Yeah, and that really was Caleb's window right there. And he just was not able to capitalize. The cards did not fall for him. And now we find ourselves in a situation where he is down so many resources. Michael Davidson is going to be pretty far away from getting off an attack, from doing really any super meaningful damage or anything like that. But, man, it is just already looking so difficult for Caleb Gedemer in this game, too.
Yeah, Blood Moon Ursaluna is going to flee back onto the bench, and Caleb is going to need to chase it down, which is another expenditure of resources. There's the switch for Comfey to come into the active and use Flower Selecting.
Prime Catcher's already gone for Caleb. Let's not forget, right? He had to squawk and seize it away.
That's so brutal, Chip. This is the worst case scenario for Caleb. And it wasn't like he went tunnel vision or greed to get the attack.
So.
It was just all forced to dig and try to get the attack. It was
if he
just his best
didn't
course
use
of action.
Squawkabilly, if he did not use Squawkabilly, his hand would have been terrible. He likely would have just drawn in past. He had to use Squawk and Seize to just advance his hand.
And after the Flower Selecting, it's a Pokegear 3.0. It didn't seem to find anything, however. Roxanne once again being sent to the Lost Zone.
Yeah, it's honestly almost unbelievable that Caleb didn't at least find like an earthen vessel somewhere along the way in the sequence he did last turn.
And I got to double check the prizes. There's 1 in the prize cards, but still, that's 1 out of 4.
Yeah, he saw so many cards and it just wasn't happening. Michael Davidson still doesn't have much going on here, however.
Okay, just a pass back. So now Earthen Vessel a little bit too late.
We do see a couple now, thanks to the Burst Roar. The
bench
question is going to be, can Caleb find that final Professor Sada's Vitality? He doesn't necessarily have to play it right now.
Yeah, can Earthen Vessel grab the Lightning, grab the Grass, grabs another Fighting instead.
Looks like he's got a
Has the
Lightning
second
already
Earthen
in
Vessel as
hand.
well.
Yeah, he's got access to basically all energy types, whatever he could want or need.
And after the shuffle, this is going to be the attach, another Teal Dance to draw 1.
And I think a lot of people would look at trying to take out the Ursaluna here and chase after the prizes. But if I'm Caleb, I'm taking out this Comfey. That's my opponent's one thing they're stringing on to hope here with.
Mm-hmm. And if you're in Caleb's shoes, you know you can take out the Comfey, but you know Michael's still going to enjoy access to the Pokestop, which is aiding both of these players, and it's why we saw their decks get basically down to 0 in game 1. And
Michael
finally,
Davidson also whiffing the Pokegear last turn. I mean, that's pretty terrible for him. There's just it's really a struggle out there on that side of the field.
essentially the way that the first turns have hashed out, you've got to either end the game quickly, because the longer the game goes, the worse off Caleb is going to be.
Goodness.
Just takes a knockout on Comfey. And once again, Pokestop not coming through.
I don't think he has anything. He's going to attach, I think, and pass. All Caleb needs is 2 energy cards. Teal Dance attached for turn, and that will be Bellowing Thunder for the KO. We're going to Game 3 of our Masters Division Finals.
It wasn't pretty, but Caleb Gedemer did get there. Michael Davidson putting all of his awkward variance and bad luck into that second game, getting it out of the way, and we've got plenty of time on the clock, Chip, for game number 3 of our finals.
And I'm going to be interested to see here, what does Michael Davidson choose to do? He has the option, first or second. If he goes first, there's 2 things that can happen. He could pop off like he did in game number 1 when he went first, or he could go Ursaluna pass like he did in game number 2. Does he go second? Give himself more of an opportunity to find a Quotus, get more set up, and not give Caleb Gedemer an opening. I think that is probably the correct course of action. This matchup feels so good for Michael Davidson. He just needs to worry about his setup, make that his number 1 priority.
Mm-hmm. And both of these players, you can see the difference of going first versus going second. It's a big topic for Michael Davidson, especially if you were thinking about, okay, I want to go over here, over there. After seeing the way that game 1 versus game 2 played out, it's going to make you rethink your strategy going into the third game anyway around Chip. And Caleb is still pretty cool, calm, and collected, even though that game was pretty rough. He also, got a lot of bad variance, perhaps, out of the way in game number 2 heading into the third game because of the early Sadas.
It's just how the cards fell for Caleb Gedemer. It was a little awkward, but, he does still end up coming away with it. Not playing too hard into having to win that turn. Sequenced it, I think, pretty well overall, and he does come away with the victory. Michael Davidson hoping for a better looking setup here in this game.
Looks like both players have a basic Pokemon to start, but Caleb has a couple options in hand, just thinking about what he does want to put down. And now we'll look at the prizes, Chip. Caleb Gedemer lays his down. Squawkabilly's in there. Prime Catcher's in there. Michael Davidson has no access to Iron Hands as well, but Caleb decides to start with Slither Wing in the active, try and have an early attacker against that Ursaluna EX, perhaps.
Yeah, this is not something we have seen come up just yet, but it is a decent option to be a 1 prize attacker, offset Michael Davidson's 2-2-2 prize trade. I think the Slitherwing is definitely a decent option here for Caleb Gedemer.
Opens up the game with an Earthen Vessel. Gonna look through the deck right now to get 2 energy cards and can see that Squawkabilly is missing. The first couple games, the Squawkabilly was a double-edged sword. It felt like something he didn't really want to use to discard his hand, and it felt so forced that he still needed to get rid of a lot of important resources just to see more of the deck and get his game plan off the ground.
Caleb is taking note here of all the prizes. Like we mentioned, a Prime Catcher, a Sada, that Squawkabilly definitely could matter if he doesn't have a great hand otherwise, but off of this Earthen Vessel here, he's really having to decide which energies he wants to go with initially.
Picks a Lightning and a Fighting energy, and then uses the Earthen Vessel to discard a Lightning and get 2 more. Did you get a quick glimpse at the hand there, Chip? I don't know if there was an Ogre Pawn. No, just a Pheasantipity right now.
I think he's going to be kind of relying on a Pokestop here. But to be honest, for Caleb's side, I don't think I like putting Pokestop in play. It really helps Michael Davidson out a ton. He can go for it next turn. He's got what he needs, attach, and he can get the attack off. So putting this Pokestop in play could be really good for Michael Davidson, and that is brutal for Caleb Gedemer. 2 Pokemon and an energy going down.
So nothing really to shore up this hand. There is Pheasantipity in the hand, and typically you want to wait as long as possible before you put that in play. Usually on the same turn you use Flip the Script in response, but Caleb needs to put down the extra bench Pokemon just in case Michael Davidson has a crazy pop-off. So now he opens up with Nest Ball, can search the deck for a basic Pokemon to place on the bench, and now it will be his turn to evaluate the prize card situation, to evaluate all of the energy that's still left in the deck. Now knows that there is no access to Iron Hands for the time being, and is down 1 Mirage Gate.
Yeah, I don't think Iron Hands will be too big of a factor in this game because Squawkabilly is not going to come down for Caleb, but that Mirage Gate and also the Pow Pad are both things that could come up. Pokegear as well, something that Michael doesn't mind having access to, just a little bit more reach for Colress, or maybe Boss's Orders or Roxanne on those key swing turns that he wants to go for one of those non-Colress supporters.
So Michael Davidson opts for Radiant Greninja as the selection from Nest Ball to open up concealed cards. You discard an energy from hand to draw 2. Needs to start finding ways to grab Comfey and a way to get Cramorant out of the active spot. Flower selecting ability can only be used when that Comfey is in the active spot.
And he's going to need some help here. He's got quite a few energy cards in his hand currently and a switch. That's about it. He doesn't have a way to get any more Pokemon. He does not have a Colress's Experiment. So between the incoming concealed cards and also the use of Pokestop, Michael is going to need some help.
5 cards between a great setup and a very terrible one. There is at the very least 1 energy attached to the Slitherwing, so with 1 more fighting energy, it can swing in for 120 to knock out the Cramorant if it's not moved. Michael Davidson finally shuffling up after that deck search, evaluating his prize cards, and now, is there any difference between Pokestop first versus concealed cards first?
Yeah, I think generally you would go for the Pokestop first in case you like draw into a Buddy Buddy Poffin. You can go get a few Pokemon out of the deck so you can increase your chances to draw into Colress. There is, of course, the double-edged sword of potentially drawing into Colress off the Pokestop.
But then the concealed card gets 2 items.
First. Doesn't help too much.
Okay, draw 3. Switch cart, Nest Ball, and Prime Catcher.
It's still kind of just okay. It's going to be onto this Nest Ball to find a Comfey, and then it'll be on to Flower Selecting to see what we want to grab.
Just 2 more cards seen. Hopefully finding a Colress's Experiment. There is a Pokegear in the prizes, of course, so slightly lower odds to find it, but a lot of great options here to get Comfey into the active spot and see cards. Michael Davidson has to shuffle up after, of course, that Pokestop and the Nest Ball to grab the Comfey.
Yeah, it does have a switch in hand. Also has an energy he could attach and retreat, but generally you want to use the switch first, I feel like. Save your retreat option for later. You never know if you could find a Colress, which could lead to a rescue board, which could then be used for your retreat instead of committing an energy card to do it.
Beautiful switch. And a Buddy Poffin, the Prophecy Chip. Buddy Poffin to find 2 more Comfey from the deck onto the bench. Now the switch card can be used to put another Comfey into the active spot. Still has the manual retreat for turn if there's an energy to expend. And 3 more cards will be seen. Even more shots at getting Colress's Experiment to continue filling up the Lost Zone and move closer to Mirage Gate, the key card that Michael needs to power up his attackers and start pressuring Caleb Gedemer.
Yeah, Michael wouldn't mind, I think, going for the Cramorant hit here with the Spit Innocently. Even though it is into the Slitherwing, even though it is into a single prize Pokemon, it does mean that Caleb would have a hard time justifying the use of the attack. That effect of burning Turbulence over there on the Slitherwing is that you have to put 90 damage on yourself.
Yeah, so it would just knock itself out. It's also something that you can maybe clean up later with a Radiant Greninja or a Sableye. Third Flower Selecting comes through, sends a Pokestop to the Lost Zone. There's a Super Rod now in the hand. This will come in handy later on in the game. And we have to remind you folks that these players are not running Disruption, so everything that's in the hand is going to stay there. And this accumulation of resources is putting Michael Davidson way ahead. Passes back over, and Caleb is going to go for Pokestop.
Yeah, needs something big time here on the stop. Has an earthen vessel, but just not really much else.
Spinning all of the energy, but has no nest balls, no ways to get basic Pokemon. Where is the Radiant Greninja?
Yeah, that would be a great card to combo with all these energy cards that Caleb has been drawing into. Plenty of earthen vessels utilized. The problem in game number 2 was finding energy cards, and now the problem in game number 3 is finding Pokemon. He had plenty of Pokemon in game 2, no energy cards, plenty of energy cards in this game, but no Pokemon. Where are the Pokemon?
And with this awkward outcome, Caleb can thin all of the energies out of the decks with multitudes of earthen vessels, but now that Slitherwing is powered up, there's no Professor Sadas, there's no Teal Dance. There's a couple options where Michael can respond to this. Slitherwing's going to take a knockout on maybe the Cramorant, maybe just a Comfey here. Goes down to low HP because of the drawback of Burning Turbulence. But if Michael Davidson so chooses, maybe takes out the Fezandipity, and Caleb Gedemer is just left with a low HP single prizer in play. Now that it's finally back over to Michael Davidson, he promotes a Comfey and uses the Pokestop and discards 3.
Ooh, that is the other side of the Pokestop. Sometimes it draws you 3 item cards, but sometimes it discards 2 supporters.
Yep, the boss's orders goes to the discard pile. Radiant Greninja's concealed cards, discards a water to draw 2. Has a switch here.
Lost Vacuum could be used to fuel the Lost Zone. Looks like it will be Flower Selecting here first.
Keeps the Buddy Poffin. Let's grab a 4th Comfey.
You're really valuing just getting more Flower Selectings off here.
And finally, a switch into this Comfey. We haven't seen Rescue Board yet, which would be great. Gets rid of Buddy Poffin now to pick up another Mirage Gate. The pieces are lining up certainly, Chip.
Yes, so many Mirage Gate now in the hand. The problem is that Michael doesn't really have a great option to go after the Fezandipity. It would basically just be the Blood Moon Ursaluna. That's really his only way to KO this. And he would have to put 4 energy cards on that Blood Moon Ursaluna, and that is a massive expenditure of resources. That is 2 Mirage Gates going down. That could be a problem.
Yeah, because if Michael Davidson just knocks out the Slitherwing, Caleb Gedemer has access to flip the script. And I know that there's a lot of viewers in the audience that have fallen victim to that. Oh no, they drew 3 cards and suddenly the deck comes alive. Switch card to put this 3rd Comfey into the active spot. Flower Selecting gets rid of Pokestop to add Sableye to the hand.
Yeah, don't really need Pokestop. It's the only stadium that either of these 2 players play.
And I just realized we haven't seen a Colress's Experiment yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards in the Lost Zone, but it's been all on the back of Comfey. We need a little bit more help here. Could get to 7 with the Lost Vacuum in hand. That would Lost Zone a card from the hand and also get rid of the Pokestop over on Caleb Gedemer's side. But we talked about in game 1 how valuable those can be to get rid of Bravery Charms. So Michael may not want to go for it, and he's really, I think, having a tough time with what he wants to do here. I almost would prefer to see him just pass than knock out this Slitherwing.
Yeah, the same question that was presented to Caleb in game 2 is now for Michael Davidson. Don't overextend if you don't have to. Still play the game out as though you know it's going to go long. Lost Vacuum is used, however,
we're
to
going
get up
for
to
it.
7 in the Lost Zone. Michael Davidson does want to go aggressive this turn.
Does he have the Blood Moon Ursaluna is the question, and I think the answer,
Oh, wait, did he bench the Sableye?
I think he didn't quite sequence this how he wanted to. I think he maybe wanted to play Super Rod first.
Oh, yeah, Super Rod. Okay, so the Mirage Gate does find a Water and a Lightning. Is going to go for the Radiant Greninja. Another Mirage Gate to power this up. You can attach these to your Pokemon however you like. It's not like Primal Turbo where they have to go to the same target, right? So you can put the 3rd energy on the Radiant Greninja, and then the 4th energy will go onto Comfey so it can retreat out of the active spot.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to go for some Lost Mine shenanigans, but no.
I really don't know how to feel about this, Adam, because sure, the Greninja can get in. It can knock out the Slytherin. You can damage the Fezandipiti EX and try to set it up to be KO'd by something a little easier later on. But this is going to activate Flip the Script for Caleb Gedemer. This gives Caleb Gedemer quite the opening here. And Michael Davidson is down quite a few resources to Mirage Gate going down for this play. I'm not sure if that was worth it.
Giving your opponent access to 3 cards from the top of the deck has been the break point for so many. Ogerpon and Nest Ball found. There's basic Pokemon now, Chip.
And also, Caleb did take a Nest Ball off the prizes last turn, so we can see a pair of Raging Bolt EX come into play. And then maybe that Pokegear could find a Professor Sada's Vitality.
After Lost vacuuming away the Pokestop, maybe Michael Davidson thought that I'm just going to knock this out, pressure you to do something in response to this play. And if you don't have it, then I'm going to win. And by getting rid of Slitherwing, the Ursaluna becomes a much more attractive play.
A little interesting to see that Caleb did not use the Nest Balls before using Teal Dance. He could have grabbed a pair of Raging Bolt out of the deck. I think kind of the main Pokemon he would have wanted. But it looks like he's actually going a different route here. Well, I guess now that he's drawn into a Raging Bolt off of that first Teal Dance, that makes more sense as to why he would want to get an Ogerpon now. But yeah, I just don't know if you need that many Pokemon. I think he would be kind of fine playing from a low Pokemon board. Now he's got some more liabilities in play. I'm not sure how to feel about it.
And then after the next Teal Dance finds Radiant Greninja. This is going to result in more card draw. That flipped the script, doing a lot of heavy lifting thanks to that Nest Ball as well.
I do wonder if Caleb will be hesitant to put the Radiant Greninja into play. It would provide Michael Davidson with an odd prize that he could take. You know, he could knock out 2 Ogerpon and then knock out the 1 Radiant Greninja, which is a lot easier than getting through a Raging Bolt EX.
Very true. Trying to keep the macro ideas of these prize mapping in your head, Chip, so important when it's this Raging Bolt versus a single prize Lost Zone deck. This was one of the original ways that players attempted to counter Raging Bolt, is playing single prize decks. That was the big, flash in the pan rise of Ancient Box.
The big issue here for Caleb, and probably why he felt pressured to go with a couple of Ogerpons, is that he just doesn't have a Sada, right? He's trying to do everything he can to increase his chances to find one off of the Pokegear he has in his hand. And one of the things he could do to increase those chances would be to use concealed cards first, but he knows that this could be a catch-22. Putting that in play could be devastating, but not finding a Sada here could be devastating.
All right, playing for the late game. Find Sada off of Pokegear is rewarded. Doesn't need to put that liability in play. Keeps Michael Davidson on odd prizes. And with Professor Sada's Vitality, still has the attachment for turn. The Raging Bolt will be able to come into the active. Needs to get this Fezandipiti out of the active as well. Benches a second Raging Bolt. Beautiful. We get the double attachment.
And I do believe we have Switch Cart in the hand as well, which will do 2 things here for Caleb Gedemer. It will heal this Fezandipiti EX and also move it from the active spot to the bench.
Professor Sada attaching to each ancient Pokemon 1 energy from your discard pile, and then you get to draw 3 cards. And with the Switch card to remove the Fezandipiti, there's also Bravery Charm I think I see in the hand for this active Raging Bolt, just putting a big question into the active spot that Michael Davidson needs to answer.
And it's good for Caleb Gedemer here as well, because Michael Davidson used one of his 2 Lost Vacuum on the last turn in order to get to 7 cards in the Lost Zone. Yet another reason that I'm just not sure it was worth it.
And despite everything, Caleb can just crack back on Radiant Greninja now, discarding 2 energy cards from the Ogerpons, leaving the Raging Bolt EX in the active fully powered up. That means you still have an attack even if you don't have Professor Sada's, and you can just rely on more Teal Dances to keep things going. There's the knockout. Caleb going to take 1 more prize, and Michael Davidson losing out on concealed cards for now. Promotes Comfey into the active to kick things off.
It will indeed be Flower selecting to continue forward with this one. Doesn't mind using Spiritomb. Pretty cool tech to see in the deck on the weekend. It's really strong against the Stage 2 decks that rely on Rotom V to get set up, namely Dragapult and Charizard, which Michael did play against Charizard in top 4. Rotom was a big deal in that game. And then also the control decks, the Snorlaxes, the Pidgeot controls, they usually rely on Rotom to get cards added to their hand. It's a nice tech for those, which is a deck that Michael played on his win-and-in match. So it's nice when the Spiritomb tech card pays off. Didn't end up being good in this finals match, but it's gotten him to this point.
Yeah, that's always great. You can have your techs when you need them and send them to the lost zone when you don't. Hisuian Heavy Ball pulls Iron Hands EX off of the prizes. Caleb has already learned his lesson, doesn't have Squawkabilly in play, is trying to make the prize map as difficult as possible for his opponent, and Michael Davidson needs to continue to fill up the lost zone, is still 2 off of gaining access to Lost Mine.
Yeah, and I don't even know if Lost Mine is that good right now. It would have been good if Caleb hadn't played Switch Cart, because it would have been able to KO the Pheasantipity. You'd have been able to take 2 prizes. But now if you use Lost Mine, where are you putting the damage? You know, you can spread it out a little bit.
the cards a little bit too hard. That Sableye seemed to have popped off and fell under the table, but the judge has it covered.
Yep.
Switch Cart and Nest Ball is the choice off of Flower Selecting.
Yeah, and has to make the decision. The Nest Ball can find him an attacker to utilize. The Switch Cart can get him into said attacker, but you can't keep both of these cards. Yet another reason, I just want to go back to last turn, I don't know that using the Greninja was totally worth it, because now he doesn't have concealed cards in order to get through the deck a little bit better.
Yeah, just fearing the Slitherwing perhaps a little bit too much, and also giving Caleb access to flip the script has indeed flipped this entire game on its head.
Yeah, it's been all the difference without a doubt.
But
his hand is really
choice
just not
to make
good
here.
And I think that's what he's really debating on here. It's like, I would love to keep Nest Ball to have access to my Pokemon, but my hand is just going nowhere. I may have to keep Switch Cart just to switch into Comfey and pull off another Flower Selecting.
And have we, you got to refresh my memory, Chip, have we seen Chorus's experiment yet? Was that last turn?
I still don't know that a Chorus has been played this game.
So it's really struggling. At this point in the game, a Lost Zone deck would have way more cards in hand. So you just are able to use Super Rods and Nest Balls and Mirage Gates to basically treat your hand, deck, and discard pile as essentially all face up, have access to every card you need at any given moment. And Michael Davidson really struggling at this point, had even Lost Zoned that Pokestop earlier in order to deny it to Caleb, but now kind of needs a little bit more dig to help out. Hasn't made a choice off of the, wait, got rid of the Nest Ball.
Yeah, now I think he's saying, can I take that back? Can I get the the Nest Ball instead of the Switch Card? This is the card. We know it was the card, but he did put it into his hand, and he kind of put it in the middle of his hand as well. Yeah,
And this is what you talked about, Chip. Michael Davidson, a little bit of a younger player. And especially with so much pressure. Game 3, Louisville Regional Finals.
Yeah, I think it's
Getting
just
a
going
little
to be
bit
up
too
to
lost in the sauce.
It's going to be up to what the judges say. Now, Michael does have a path to take 2 prize cards this turn. What he can do is he can use the arm press on the Iron Hands EX. He's got Iron Hands EX in his hand. He's got a pair of Mirage Gate as well, but I don't know if he how many energy he has access to. I think there's a couple Super Rod in the hand, so he should be able to pull it off, but in order to do that play, he would probably be utilizing both of his last 2 remaining Mirage Gate.
Arm press, very important to note. Also, you need 2 lightning energy for.
Yeah, that is very important to note, because the Mirage Gate has to get 2 different energy cards.
And with the Switch Cart being sent to the Lost Zone off this final Flower Selecting, Michael Davidson finally getting 10 cards in the Lost Zone after all. So looking at the discard pile, it's going to be a Super Rod here soon, I imagine. Looking at a Psychic Energy, a Lightning Energy, and Radiant Greninja.
Just trying to think through what his best option is. Where does he go from here? How does he play himself out of this situation he now finds himself in?
Yeah, it had to maybe be some sort of Sableye play just to try to set something up to get around the Bravery Charm. If you don't have that second Lost Vacuum, it could be very detrimental. So after Super Rod shuffles these energies back in, it will be Sableye benched and Mirage Gate to go fishing.
And Sableye, the Mirage Gate usage here acts for 2 things. It gets you an energy for your attacker, but it also acts as a pivot. It acts as a retreat option, pulling that energy out of the deck, attaching it to the active Comfey that can now move into Sableye. I'm curious to see where Michael is going to set this damage up. Now, he may not be anticipating the fact that Caleb Gedemer plays 3 Switch Cards, and that is something that could really pay off here for Caleb Gedemer. He could heal a lot of this damage that's put into play, depending on if Michael Davidson spreads it too thin, or does he stack it all onto one Pokemon?
The switch cart, you get to retreat a basic Pokemon, you get to switch it, and then it heals 30 HP. This is important because that's why that Pheasantipity is at 150 HP, not 120, where you could just go all in with the Lost Mine to get 2 prizes right now.
So let's see, 120 damage, 12 damage counters being spread. However, Michael Davidson sees fit.
And it looks like Pheasantipity and the Benched Raging Bolt are the 2 targets, but we need to see the distribution of those damage counters.
Yeah, and I think it is going to be the best placed onto benched Pokemon, right? If you put it onto the active, you're just playing into Switch Cart, but benched Pokemon are on the bench. You get to ensure that that damage will stick around for at least one more turn, unless Caleb pulls off some, Prime Catcher plus Switch Cart or double Switch Cart plays.
And Caleb Gedemer is, can't rely too heavily on this Bravery Charm. Knows that the Lost Vacuum could just remove that at the same time Blood Moon Ursaluna EX comes into attack. And when you're looking at the game from Michael Davidson's side, sure, you're setting up the Sableye play, but you need to be able to capitalize on this initial Lost Mine setup. Is there another Super Rod to put it back into the deck? Another Nest Ball to get it out of the deck? Another way to recover Psychic Energy?
Yep. So it does look like play has been stopped, and I think the issue here is that Michael Davidson already retreated during his turn. We just saw he tried to retreat the Comfey, but I thought they were, that's right. We're hearing word that he maybe retreated very, very early in the turn.
Oh, man, I must have missed that. My goodness.
So this is going to make things very interesting. Michael may be forced to play the Prime Catcher to even pull off an attack here, and Michael's just going to concede. What? He's just scooping.
Oh my goodness! Maybe it resulted in some sort of prize penalty.
Well,
I'm not really quite sure.
It's something along those lines. But regardless of what it is, we'll get word exactly soon. But Caleb Gedemer is the Louisville Regional Champion with Raging Bolts.
After a crazy Game 1, a crazy Game 2, into some sort of unprecedented Game number 3, Caleb Gedemer, his veteran status, his ability to keep a cool head, has reigned supreme, where his opponent maybe got stuck making too many decisions with Lost Zone. It is a deck that will fry your brain in a long tournament. Caleb Gedemer seems very amazed at this outcome, but I know that he's happy regardless.
I mean, that is his 4th regional win, his first one in quite some time. He had a string at the end of the 2022 season where he top-8'd and got 2nd place at 2 regionals in a row, was not able to lock up the win there, but he's able to do just that here. Caleb Gedemer